In the glittering ballrooms of Regency London, where every debutante dreams of marrying a duke, Lady Matilda Fairchild is the only woman who dares to refuse him. Intelligent, independent, and quietly grieving the loss of her father, Arabella has no desire to play the marriage games of society. But when Cedric Redknapp, the powerful and enigmatic Duke of Ravencrest, sets his sights on her, a breathtaking story of emotional resistance, stubborn pride, and unexpected love begins. This is a heartwarming tale of two souls from different worlds, one tired of being pursued for his title, the other too proud to believe in fairy tales, who must overcome scandal, misunderstanding, and their own fears to find a love worth fighting for. The rain fell in jagged sheets, drumming against the coffin lid as if the heavens themselves mourned with her. Lady Matilda Fairchild stood rigid, fingers clenched around the edges of her mother's ring, eyes fixed on the polished wood before her. She could feel every whispered comment from the gathered crowd, every insinuation about her father's debts, every sideways glance at her tattered gloves. And there, at the edge of the mourners, silent as stone, stood Cedric Redknapp, Duke of Ravencrest. His presence was a knife to her chest. He ruined him. He ruined everything. Matilda's jaw tightened, and for a moment, she wanted to turn and spit in his direction, to accuse him aloud. But the words caught in her throat. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and crushed roses, bitter as grief itself. A courier approached, bowing stiffly, holding a sealed envelope. She tore it open with trembling fingers. Her breath hitched. Legal notice. Her father's townhouse, her only home left, now belonged to the Duke. The wind whipped around her, tugging at her skirts, and for a heartbeat, she imagined she could sweep the entire world with her fury. Cedric's dark eyes met hers across the grave, unyielding, unreadable. She wanted to hate him, to curse him, but she could not, at least not entirely. Inside her empty drawing room later, Matilda sank onto the worn velvet settee, the envelope heavy in her hand. The fire had died down, leaving the room in shadowed gray. Every piece of furniture, every ledger, every photograph of her father seemed to remind her. She was alone, nearly destitute, and the man she despised now held her fate in his hands. A sharp knock at the door jolted her. "Enter," she snapped, her voice brittle. Cedric stepped inside without waiting, his gloved hands clasped behind him, posture stiff with command. "Matilda," he said quietly, but each syllable carried the weight of power and accusation. "You need not live in fear of your creditors. I can provide security." Security? Her voice cracked. Or humiliation? She stood abruptly, pacing the narrow room. "You take my house, my inheritance, and now you lecture me about security?" He met her glare without flinching. "You misunderstand. I do this to protect you, from people who would see you ruined beyond repair." Her laugh was hollow. "Protect me? By owning everything I have? By forcing me into debt to you? You are the villain in this story, Duke. Do not pretend otherwise." Cedric's jaw tightened. "I am not pretending, Lady Matilda, but there are dangers you cannot see. Dangers that would destroy you without warning." She shook her head, bitter tears threatening to fall. "I do not need your protection. I do not need a duke to dictate my life." Yet, even as she spoke, she knew the truth. She had nowhere else to turn. No friends wealthy enough to intervene, no family with resources to shield her. Every path she could take led to ruin unless she accepted what she hated. Cedric placed a hand on the back of a chair, a simple gesture, yet it radiated authority. "Then consider my offer, an appointment as my estate archivist. You will be under my roof, yes, but your reputation, your property, and your safety will remain intact. It is your choice." Matilda's stomach churned. The thought of living under his roof, working side by side with the man she blamed for every misfortune, was a torment she could scarcely bear. Pride and necessity warred inside her. To refuse him outright was to embrace ruin. To accept was to surrender dignity. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his gaze. I will take your position," she said finally, voice tight with defiance and fear. "But understand this. I am not in your debt, and I will not bow to you." Cedric's lips curved just slightly, neither smile nor frown, but there was a glimmer of acknowledgement in his dark eyes. "I do not ask for obedience, Lady Matilda, only that you live, that you endure." As the storm outside raged on, Matilda realized her life had irrevocably shifted. She had entered the Duke's world, the halls of Ravencrest, the archives of secrets, the slow and dangerous dance of proximity and pride. And though she refused to admit it yet, she was tethered to him in ways that would pull her toward the edge of scandal, revelation, and, perhaps, something she had sworn to deny, desire. That night, as she climbed the narrow staircase to her small chamber at Ravencrest House, a thought lingered unbidden. What if the man I vowed to hate is the only one who can save me? Beneath the flickering candlelight, with the wind moaning like a grieving spirit through the corridors, she set her jaw, tightened her gloves, and prepared for the first of many battles. Not against the world, but against the man she was beginning, reluctantly, to see differently. Outside, the rain continued to lash the streets of London, relentless and unyielding. Inside, two lives collided, tethered by necessity, misjudgment, and the invisible threads of secrets yet to be revealed. And somewhere, deep in the silence, the first spark of a dangerous, intoxicating connection flickered to life. What would you do if the person you blamed for your heartbreak arrived at the worst moment of your life? The envelope trembled in her hand once more, and Matilda knew that this was only the beginning. Matilda stared at the ledger spread across the oak desk, her fingers hovering over the faded ink, as if touching it could rewrite the past. Her father's meticulous handwriting mocked her now. Calculations, debts, payments, all a puzzle she could not yet solve. The walls of her small, borrowed room in Ravencrest House felt closer than ever, pressing in with the weight of judgment, obligation, and an invisible hand of control she refused to acknowledge. Cedric had left her alone for the first time since the offer, but his absence was suffocating in its certainty. She was now under his roof, living at his discretion, and every step she took was a reminder of her dependence. Charlotte's voice broke through the heavy silence. "Matilda, you cannot continue like this. You are not a child." She stood in the doorway, damp from the sudden London drizzle, her cheeks flushed with concern. "You have to eat, or at least stop staring at those ledgers as if they will answer themselves." Matilda did not look up. "They are answering themselves, Charlotte. They tell me everything I need to know. That my family's name is sullied, that our debts were immense, and that a duke now holds the key to my survival." She clenched her fists, the paper crumpling beneath them. "And yet I cannot bring myself to thank him. I loathe him, and worse, I do not know why." Charlotte crossed the room and placed a gentle hand on her friend's shoulder. "You are human, Matilda. You are grieving. You are proud. But you are also alive, and alive means accepting help sometimes, even when it comes wrapped in the thing you most despise." The words should have comforted her, but instead they stoked a fire. Matilda stood abruptly, pacing again, the floorboards groaning beneath her boots. "Accept help? From him? The man I have sworn to despise? Never." A distant knock startled her. Cedric's voice followed moments later, calm but measured. "May I come in?" She froze, the words of her friend still echoing in her mind. "If you must." Her tone was clipped, though her pulse raced. He entered, closing the door behind him with the faint click of finality. His eyes scanned the scattered ledgers and notes, then fixed on her with that piercing intensity that made her want to look away. "I trust you are acclimating to Ravencrest," he said evenly, though his gaze suggested he meant something far sharper. Matilda bristled. "Acclimating is hardly the word, Duke. I am enduring. I am surviving. Cedric's lips twitched, almost imperceptibly. Endurance is often the first step toward mastery, he said, setting a small stack of documents on the desk. These are some of the estate ledgers. You will need to familiarize yourself with them if you are to assist me properly. I trust your father taught you arithmetic. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. I can read numbers, Duke. I can read contracts. And I can read deceit better than most. I need none of your condescension. He inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her words without offense. Very well, then let us begin. As he moved closer to point out certain entries, the warmth radiating from his presence stirred a frustration deep within her. She wanted to hate him utterly, yet his quiet competence, the way he handled the ledgers with ease, and the subtle concern in his posture gnawed at her resolve. Hours passed in near silence, punctuated only by the scratching of quills and the soft rustle of paper. Yet with every correction he offered, with every subtle explanation of a creditor's method, she felt herself reluctantly learning not only the mechanics of estate management but the truths her father had left for her to uncover. Secrets hidden in plain sight, mistakes that were not mistakes at all, forged entries, inconsistencies. At one point, she dared to meet his gaze. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly, voice tight with suspicion. "Why protect me at all? Why not leave me to my ruin?" Cedric's eyes darkened, not with anger but with something heavier, something private. "Because your father asked me to," he said simply. "And because some debts cannot be measured in pounds, but in the lives they destroy. You are worth more than society will ever acknowledge." Her throat tightened. She wanted to turn away, to deny the flutter of emotion his words ignited. Yet, in that moment, she felt a thread of understanding. Her father's trust, his last wish, had been placed in this man she thought she hated. A sudden noise in the hallway, a creak of floorboards, a murmur of voices outside, made her pulse spike. Cedric's hand, when it brushed against hers to point at a ledger entry, lingered too long. She recoiled instinctively, pride and desire warring in equal measure. Charlotte's earlier words returned, echoing with more force than before. Sometimes help is disguised in the thing you cannot yet forgive. And perhaps, Matilda thought with a shiver, survival is more complicated than hatred, more intricate than pride. Outside the window, London's mist rolled in over the cobblestones, curling around the gas lamps and the whisper of society's ever-watchful eye. Inside, the house was silent but for the rustle of paper and two hearts beating in tandem with fear, suspicion, and a danger neither fully understood. As the candle flickered low, Matilda pressed her palms to her eyes. "Why, father, why did you trust him?" she whispered. Cedric's voice followed her, low and measured, yet carrying an edge that made her heart hitch. "Because some truths cannot be left unguarded, Matilda, and because your life matters more than the opinions of the world." Her chest tightened, and for the first time since her father's death, she allowed herself to imagine, just for a heartbeat, that not everything had been lost. Have you ever misjudged someone only to learn the truth later? The question lingered in the candlelit room as shadows stretched across the walls, signaling that her journey under Ravencrest's roof, and under Cedric's watchful eye, was only just beginning. The sound of shattering glass tore through the quiet of her half-empty drawing room. Matilda's heart leapt into her throat as a man's shadow fell across the doorway. "Miss Fairchild," a gruff voice called, and the clatter of papers followed. "Time to settle your debts, or we take what's ours." Matilda spun, chest tight, fury and fear clashing like a storm. "Leave," she demanded, though her voice trembled. "You will not set foot here." The man stepped forward, gloved hands braced on the edge of her father's mahogany desk. "You owe Lord Ashford, Mississippi. You know the terms. The estate, the furnishings, the valuables, all of it, unless payment is immediate." Her fingers clenched over the nearest ledger, nails digging into paper. "I have no more to give. You will not touch my home." A sudden, commanding voice cut through the tension. "Step aside." Cedric's shadow fell over the room, taller than the intruders, and in a single motion, he moved between them and Matilda. "I think you misunderstand, gentlemen. Miss Fairchild's affairs are under my protection now." The men paused, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Cedric's presence was absolute, composed, unyielding, with that quiet menace that promised consequences far beyond their expectation. "Under the Duke's protection?" one muttered. "Yes, mine," Cedric replied simply. "She is not to be harassed, threatened, or interfered with. Understand." The men exchanged looks, weighed their options, and finally retreated with muttered curses, leaving shattered glass and tension behind. Matilda's knees nearly gave way, but Cedric caught her arm, steady and reassuring. "Are you unharmed?" he asked, eyes scanning her face for more than just the physical bruises that might have formed. I am fine," she said, her pride bristling. "I do not need your protection." He held her gaze for a moment longer, the air thick with something unspoken. Then he released her hand, stepping back. "Perhaps you do not, but circumstances suggest otherwise." Moments later, as the adrenaline faded, Matilda slumped into the nearest chair, hands still trembling. Cedric moved to the desk, gathering the scattered ledgers and broken paper. "The situation cannot be allowed to continue," he said. "Your father's affairs, the debts, the threat from Ashford. It will all escalate unless managed carefully." Her eyes narrowed, fury mixing with helplessness. "And what do you propose?" she asked, voice sharp. "That I bow to the Duke of Ravencrest and beg for his assistance?" Cedric's lips pressed into a straight line, the barest twitch of a smirk playing at the corner. "I propose something far simpler. Work for me." Matilda blinked, disbelief and outrage colliding. "Work for you? Are you insane?" "You! I am offering you employment," Cedric interrupted, his tone flat yet edged with authority. "Archivist at Ravencrest House. You will have access to ledgers, contracts, and documentation you need to understand your father's legacy, and to defend yourself. Consider it forced proximity for your own safety." She stood abruptly, hands on her hips, trembling with indignation. "You cannot be serious. You buy my home, leave me nothing, and now expect me to work under your roof like a servant? I am no one's clerk." Cedric remained calm, unflinching. "You are no one's clerk. You are Miss Fairchild, heiress of a family whose honor I intend to preserve, even if you cannot yet see it. The offer is yours. Refuse and you risk more than discomfort. Accept, and you gain control of what remains yours." Matilda's chest tightened, anger and desperation warring. She hated that she even considered the offer. Pride screamed at her, logic whispered caution, and her fear of losing everything mingled with a reluctant acknowledgement. Cedric was her only shield against the storm gathering outside. I cannot accept," she finally said, voice breaking. "I will survive on my own. I always have." Cedric's gaze softened fractionally, though his expression remained firm. "And what if surviving alone means losing everything your father left you? Can you afford that risk?" Her fingers dug into the edge of the desk, white with tension. She could almost hear her father's voice, faint yet insistent. "Trust the man who protects you when you cannot see the danger." Her resolve wavered, though pride still fought fiercely. She had no servants, no allies of consequence, and a creditor syndicate waiting in the wings, ready to pounce. Survival had become negotiation, strategy, and courage. Finally, swallowing the bitter taste of submission, she nodded. "Fine, I will work for you. But know this, I will not forget that I have no choice in this matter." Cedric inclined his head slightly, a rare acknowledgement of her spirit. "I would not want you to forget," he said. "I require honesty, diligence, and discretion. In return, I offer protection, discreet but unwavering, and perhaps understanding." Matilda's throat tightened at the last word. Understanding, she realized, was a concept she had long denied herself, reserved only for grief and rage. Cedric's calm assurance, the way he stood between her and the chaos outside, stirred a tumult of emotions she had thought buried. Fear, anger, and something dangerously like trust. By nightfall, the first boxes of ledgers had been moved to Ravencrest House, candles flickering over ink-stained pages. Matilda unpacked them carefully, each sheet a relic of a past she could no longer control. Cedric lingered in the doorway, silent, patient, letting her sort, scan, and catalog. When she finally dared to meet his eyes, he asked quietly, "Do you understand why I cannot explain everything yet?" She swallowed, the truth settling like stone in her chest. "I understand that you are my only chance." Cedric's expression softened fractionally, though the weight of responsibility never left his shoulders. "And I will not fail you. No matter what they do or who they believe, I will see this through." The candlelight flickered over their faces, shadows merging with tension, pride, and unspoken emotion. Matilda felt her pulse hammer in her ears, the faint stirrings of respect, perhaps even reluctant admiration, coiling beneath her fury. Outside, the night was deep, and the streets of London whispered threats. Inside, a fragile alliance had formed, one that neither fully trusted yet could not escape. What would you do if the only person who could save you was the one you swore to hate? The question hung in the flickering shadows of Ravencrest House, promising danger, secrets, and a journey neither Matilda nor Cedric could yet foresee. The scandal sheet hit the drawing room like a thunderclap. Matilda's name, her father's honor, every fragile reputation she had clung to, smeared across the city in black ink for all to see. Her hands shook as she clutched the paper, the words burning into her chest. Fraud, deceiver, Fairchild legacy in ruins. She could hear the whisper of servants outside the closed door, muffled gasps and hurried steps, but it was the silence in her own home that suffocated her most. How could this happen? Every careful ledger, every secret note, every painstaking effort to protect the family name, undone in a single day. Cedric appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable, a shadow among the flickering candlelight. "Matilda," he said quietly, stepping closer. "We can stop this." She whipped around, eyes blazing, voice cracking with desperation. "Stop it? Cedric, look at what they've done. My father's name, my life, ruined. And you?" She stopped herself, choking on a sob. "You've let this happen." He flinched, as if her words cut deeper than the gossip ever could. "I never let this happen. I've been trying to protect you all along." Her laugh was bitter, hollow. "Protect me? By letting the world believe I am a liar? By standing there silently while everyone judges me?" She shook the sheet in her hands, crumpling it like it could somehow absorb her fury. "You, my enemy? You protect me?" Cedric's jaw tightened, the shadows of his own pain flickering in the candlelight. "Matilda, you have to trust me. I cannot reveal everything, not yet. But your father, he asked me to guard you. Every document, every debt, every risk. He trusted me with your life." Her body trembled, torn between disbelief and the tiny flicker of hope his words ignited. "Then why must I suffer like this? Why must the world see me as a traitor?" He stepped closer, his voice low and firm, wrapping around her like a shield. "Because truth is buried, and someone is trying to bury it deeper. But the missing ledger page exists. We find it, Matilda, and the world cannot lie about you any longer." She swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility settling in her chest. "And if we fail?" she whispered, the fear cutting through her bravado. "Then we fight anyway," Cedric said, eyes unwavering. "We cannot let them win. I will not let them win. You will not be destroyed by lies." Her hands, still trembling, clenched at her sides. In that moment, the enormity of their task pressed upon her. The late-night searches through dusty archives, secret codes in her father's handwriting, the labyrinth of forged contracts and hidden debts. Every step could be a trap, every person a spy. Cedric reached for her hand again, this time with deliberate tenderness. "I need you not just to read the documents, but to understand them. Your insight, your mind, it is our only chance." Matilda's pulse raced, her fury coiling into determination. The fear of scandal, of losing everything she loved, transformed into something sharper, fiercer. Resolve. She met Cedric's steady gaze, seeing the unspoken promise of protection and belief. "Then we do it," she said, voice steadier now, though her heart pounded. "We find the ledger, we prove them wrong, and we reclaim everything that was taken from my family." Cedric's lips curved slightly, a shadow of a smile in the dim light. "Together," he affirmed, pressing her hand with quiet strength. Outside, the world continued its cruel gossip, but inside, a plan was forming. Every whispered rumor, every scandalous accusation, became fuel for a daring strategy. Matilda's fear had not vanished, but it had transformed into a weapon, a clarity of purpose that would see her through the storm. "Would you risk everything to reclaim the truth and protect the ones you love?" As she folded the scandal sheet and tucked it carefully into her desk, Matilda realized that the fight had just begun, and this time she would not stand alone. The sound of shattering glass tore through the quiet of the Fairchild estate, dragging Matilda fully awake. Her pulse hammered as she grabbed the nearest candle, its wax dripping onto the floor, sizzling with the heat of her panic. Shadows danced across the walls, jagged and threatening, as if the night itself had become a predator. Footsteps, deliberate, heavy, unnatural, echoed in the hallway outside her room. Someone was inside. Someone meant her harm. She pressed her back to the door, breath catching, every nerve screaming danger. The forged contracts, the scandal sheets, the whispers in Parliament. All of it had led here. And now, under the thin protection of her half-empty estate, she was utterly alone. A voice, low and cruel, slithered through the crack beneath the door. "Thought you could hide, Lady Matilda? Thought the Duke's shadow would shield you?" Her hands shook as she gripped a heavy candlestick. If Cedric were here, she cursed the man, hated that she needed him even as she recognized that he was her only chance at survival. But tonight, he was miles away, ensnared by politics, duty, and secrets she did not yet fully understand. She moved cautiously, inching along the hallway, every step a gamble. The intruder was clever, too clever. Furniture shifted, curtains swayed, and the air smelled faintly of smoke and cold iron. The syndicate, she realized with a sinking heart. They've come for me. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the corner, and instinctively, she swung the candlestick. The intruder stumbled back with a grunt. Heart hammering, Matilda lunged forward, teeth clenched, breath ragged. She had never felt so alive, so terrified, so powerless all at once. Then a second figure appeared, blocking her path. Her own fear twisted into fury. "I am not afraid of you," she shouted, voice shaking but firm. "Leave this house this instant, or—" A knife glinted in the candlelight, cold, deadly, and meant for me. In that moment, all the lessons Cedric had tried to instill, caution, strategy, patience, fled from her mind. Only survival remained. Only the desperate will to live. She threw herself past the intruder, narrowly avoiding the blade, and bolted into the stairwell. The wood groaned under her weight, every step threatening to betray her location. As she reached the library, her refuge of sorts, a sense of crushing despair settled over her. She was alone, hunted, and defenseless. The syndicate had not only threatened her reputation, they were willing to spill blood to see her ruined. And for the first time, the enormity of her isolation became painfully clear. Cedric, she whispered, the name trembling on her lips. She hated that she needed him, hated that he was absent, and hated that her pride would not allow her to call for help. Yet deep down, she knew that only he could stop this nightmare. A sound behind her, a deliberate step, slow, confident, made her whip around. The intruder had followed. Matilda's chest tightened. Adrenaline surged. If I die here, everything is lost. The ledger, the proof, the chance to reclaim her father's honor gone. Suddenly, the door burst open with a force that sent splinters across the floor. Cedric stood there, cloak damp from the night, eyes blazing with controlled fury. "Matilda!" he barked, sweeping the room with commanding authority. The intruder froze, hesitation flickering across their features. Before they could react, Cedric moved, fast, precise, unyielding. In moments, the shadow fled, crashing through the hall and out into the night. Cedric's presence, a storm of power and purpose, made Matilda's heart race with a cocktail of fear, relief, and longing she could not yet name. She dropped the candlestick, breathless, chest heaving. Cedric crossed the room, gaze fierce yet tender. "You should not have faced them alone," he said quietly, voice low but sharp with reprimand. "Do you understand what you've risked?" I had no choice," she stammered, trembling. They were going to take everything. My home, my father's honor, everything." He stepped closer, lowering his hand to touch hers. Not a command, but a lifeline. "And yet, here you are, still standing, still fighting. But never again alone, Matilda. Never again." Her eyes glistened with tears she refused to shed fully, relief and fear warring inside her. I trust you," she whispered, almost inaudible, the words both a surrender and a plea. Cedric's hand covered hers, firm and grounding. "Then trust me fully. Every step, every danger. You will not face them without me." In that charged silence, the weight of the past scandals, the threats, and the lies lifted slightly. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, Matilda felt the edge of hope. And with Cedric beside her, she was ready to confront whatever darkness the syndicate had planned next. Could she finally believe that the man she vowed to hate was also the man who would never let her fall? The moment the chamber doors swung open, Cedric's presence filled the room with a gravity that silenced every whisper. Gasps rose like a tide as he stepped forward, ledger in hand, eyes blazing with the fury of a man who had spent weeks unraveling deception and treachery. "This ends tonight," he declared, voice low but iron strong, cutting through the murmurs like a knife. Matilda clutched the edge of the gallery railing, knees weak, pulse racing. Every second she had spent hiding in the shadows of the estate, running from spies, dodging forged accusations, had led to this moment. She watched Cedric place the ledger on the grand table with a decisive thud, the papers fanning out like evidence of every betrayal. The lead syndicate member rose abruptly, white-knuckled hands gripping the armrest of his chair. "How dare you? This is preposterous. You have no proof." Cedric's eyes swept the room, landing on the man with a precision that made the man flinch. "Proof?" His tone was quiet but lethal. "Every document, every contract, every ledger entry here bears the marks of forgery. You have manipulated names, debts, and social trust to ruin a woman's life. That ends now." Matilda felt her breath catch. She had feared this confrontation for so long, the weight of the syndicate's threats pressing down like a physical force. And yet, seeing Cedric standing unwavering, his presence both shield and sword, she felt the first tremor of relief ripple through her. She wasn't alone. She hadn't been alone for all of this. A clerk cleared his throat, flipping through Cedric's meticulous documentation. Each forged signature, each manipulated ledger entry, each whispered threat from the shadows was laid bare in ink. Matilda's eyes scanned the papers alongside Cedric's steady hand, disbelief and triumph intermingling in her chest. The evidence was irrefutable. The syndicate's lawyer sputtered, trying to interject, but Cedric anticipated every feint, every argument, cutting them down with cold logic and precise references. Your attempts to defame Lady Matilda, to seize her estate unlawfully, have failed. You've relied on deception, but truth has a weight you cannot lift. Matilda's chest ached as the courtroom shifted, the balance of power tilting irrevocably. Whispers turned to murmurs of admiration, shocked awe for the cunning and strategy Cedric displayed. And then, with a deliberate motion, he extended a hand toward her. "Matilda," he said, voice softer now, almost intimate. "Step forward. Your name is yours once more." Tears pricked her eyes. This moment, the culmination of weeks of fear, uncertainty, and hidden danger, was hers to claim. She moved forward, shoulders trembling but chin high, meeting Cedric's gaze with an intensity that matched his own. In that shared silence, the bond forged in candlelit archives, whispered arguments, and stolen glances crystallized into undeniable truth. They were a team, and nothing could sever the trust between them now. The syndicate's representatives slumped, their composure shattered, as the magistrate studied the evidence. "It is clear," he said finally, voice firm, "that Lady Matilda Fairchild has been wronged. Her estate, her inheritance, and her social standing are hereby fully restored. Those responsible for the fabrications will be held accountable." A wave of relief and triumph washed over Matilda, and she inhaled deeply, letting the tension drain from her muscles. Cedric's hand brushed hers lightly, a touch that was both reassurance and a spark that ignited something far deeper. "It's done," he murmured, "just for her. You are free." Her lips parted, words trembling. "Thank you for everything." He shook his head, a rare, warm smile flickering across his features. "This was always about your safety, Your Honor. My reward is seeing you whole again." Outside, the autumn sun broke through the clouds, bathing Ravencrest House in gold. Matilda and Cedric stepped onto the steps together, the air crisp and clean, every inhale a reminder of liberation. The estate, once a place of tension and threat, now felt like home, filled with possibility and promise. He turned toward her, eyes dark and intense, voice low and certain. "We've won tonight, Matilda. And yet, I want more than just justice. I want you." Her heart caught, then soared. "Then take it," she whispered, a trembling laugh escaping her lips. "Everything I am is yours." He smiled, closing the distance between them, hand finding hers in a grip that was possessive yet tender. The world outside might have been shaken by scandal, threat, and treachery, but here, in the warmth of truth and love, they stood invincible. As they watched the sunset paint the estate in amber light, the sense of danger lifted, replaced by something infinitely more enduring. Trust, devotion, and a love that had survived betrayal, fear, and the harshest trials. Their hearts beat in unison, a slow, steady rhythm that promised everything they had fought for, and more. Matilda's eyes fluttered open to the soft glow of dawn spilling across the restored Fairchild estate. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew on freshly mown lawns and the faintest whisper of lavender from the gardens she had once loved. For the first time in months, she felt the weight of fear lift from her chest, leaving space only for hope, pride, and an unexpected flutter of warmth that had nothing to do with sunlight. Cedric was already awake, standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back, his silhouette framed by the soft golden light. He turned as she moved toward him, a small, private smile tugging at the corners of his lips. It was the smile of a man who had fought battles both public and private, and emerged not just victorious, but whole. "You're up early," Matilda said, her voice still thick with the residue of sleep and lingering emotion. "And so are you," he replied, eyes warm, steady. "I wanted to see you awake in your home, fully yours again." She walked closer, her bare feet brushing the cool wooden floor, heart fluttering as if it had a rhythm of its own. "It still feels unreal, to walk through these halls and know they belong to me. Not the creditors, not the syndicate, not anyone else." Cedric's gaze softened, and he reached for her hand, his thumb brushing over hers with gentle certainty. "It is real. Every step you take here is proof. Proof of your courage, your intelligence, and your unwillingness to bow to injustice." A quiet laugh escaped her lips, mingled with a sniffle. "I thought I had lost everything. My home, my name, even myself." She paused, searching his eyes for something she couldn't name. "And yet here I am, because of you." Cedric stepped closer, his presence filling the room like a protective shadow. "Because of you," he corrected gently. "You faced danger, deceit, and betrayal head-on. I only stood beside you. Always." Her chest tightened with emotion, and she swallowed hard, fighting back tears. I don't know how to thank you. How can anyone ever repay what you've done?" He tilted her chin up with one gloved hand, his touch tender yet commanding, and their eyes met in a moment suspended between relief and longing. "You don't repay me, Matilda. You give me the greatest gift already, your trust, your presence, your heart." Her pulse raced, the words unraveling the last threads of fear and doubt that had clung to her for so long. "And your heart?" she whispered, voice trembling. Cedric's lips curved into a soft, genuine smile. "You already have it." For a long, suspended moment, they simply stood together, hands entwined, breathing in the quiet triumph of survival and love. The past shadows had been vanquished, the forged contracts, the lies, the whispers of society. None of it could touch them anymore. Then, without ceremony, Cedric reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, velvet box. Matilda's breath caught. The sunlight seemed to glint off the polished surface, turning it into something almost sacred. He knelt before her in a gesture both intimate and timeless, the weight of months of fear and longing coalescing into a single, unspoken promise. "Matilda Fairchild," he said, voice steady, reverent. "I've watched you rise from despair, face every threat with courage, and love with a heart fiercer than any blade. Will you do me the honor of being my wife?" Tears brimmed in her eyes, and she laughed softly, disbelief mingled with overwhelming joy. "Yes, yes, Cedric. I will." He rose, sliding the ring onto her finger, and she felt an electric warmth spread from her chest down to her fingertips. The estate, once a place of loss and fear, now radiated life, laughter, and endless possibility. Together, they moved through the halls, revisiting the library where so many secrets had been uncovered, the drawing room where whispered arguments had sparked trust, and the balcony where stolen glances had transformed into quiet confessions. Each space now felt alive, holding the memory of struggle, but suffused with triumph and love. Outside, the sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the estate gardens. Matilda stepped onto the balcony, Cedric at her side, their hands intertwined, and for the first time, she breathed without fear, without shame, without doubt. "What now?" she asked softly, leaning into him. "Now," Cedric murmured, resting his forehead against hers. "We build a life together, a life of honesty, love, and protection. And we let nothing, no scandal, no threat, take it from us again." Matilda closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his presence, the steadfastness of his devotion. She whispered, "I think I've finally come home." And in that moment, the world beyond the estate ceased to matter. The dawn carried promise. The walls of Fairchild Estate held safety and history, and between them, love had not just survived, it had flourished. The future stretched before them, golden and infinite, a tapestry of trust, passion, and hope, woven from the trials they had endured together. Matilda knew with every heartbeat that she had not only reclaimed her name and her home but also her heart, and it would forever belong to Cedric, the Duke who had been her enemy, her guardian, and now her greatest love. Would you forgive someone who protected you in secret? Together, they watched the sunrise, letting the light wash away the last shadows of fear, welcoming a life unbroken, undefeated, and undeniably theirs.